Excited now with doing the TDK SF Type 2 tape. Thing about this is I did this at exactly the same time as the BASF yesterday, and so what we're looking at here are the two tapes we recorded at the same time in the same machine, so the signal levels were exactly the same going in. So there's a little bit of cross-referencing that can be done. Let's get into it. I'm not going to pretend this is a new old stock. This is one that I picked up somewhere. I believe it's been well looked after. It looks okay to me. The actual tape quality is pretty good. This particular shell is nice and rigid and looks like it's going to be man enough to do the job for a few more years. Okay, this is the silence. Now looking at this, you can see it's very quiet. It's got an average minus 85 dB, which is very, very good. I'm going to put some stuff at the end of this so that you can see some interesting comparisons. So we'll keep it pure until then and then do an A/B test maybe. And while we're talking at the end, I want to confirm something and deny something. Well, we'll see how it goes. Let's get on with it. Here we go with the listening tests. Bing! Where We Want to Go by Patricos, dynamic and clean. I love that music because at the end where it fades out you can hear the subtlety, but you can also hear the dynamic bang in the middle and all the rest of it. It's pretty good as a test, I think. Looking at the trace though, you can see it's got a very good, well, it's sort of knee where it drops off at 16K, which is typical of that trace. So nothing wrong with that at all. Where We Want to Go by Patricos, dynamic and clean. So again, a good rendition of that tune. Looking at the trace, you can see how it hasn't got the knee as it goes off. So that means it descends into the mush, which is the hiss. But it's important that you should look at the actual levels. However, the fidelity of that tune is far better when it's within the minus 20 dB playback. It is proving to be that way on all of the tapes so far. The 0 dB white noise is fairly standard, and we'll be going and having a look at the pink noise. The pink noise is again what we'd expect, with a nice descent to quite a high frequency response. Looking at the 0 dB frequency response, you can see it goes up and it's better than some. It doesn't go all the way, but it's better than some. When we look at the minus 20 dB frequency sweep, you can see that there isn't that tremendous drop off. There isn't the change in levels, so actually you get a more linear frequency range where the sounds are more equal, and it's better to do it that way. But you do have to put up with the fact that there's a bit more hiss in your sound if you're going to have it at the lower levels. So what you want to do ideally is have it somewhere between minus 20 and 0. Another good reason to not overdrive them is the total harmonic distortion figures, the third harmonic distortion figures, whatever people want to call it. On here, this is the 1K at 0 dB, and you can see there is the 3 kilohertz peak. Now this is the same frequency at -20 and there's no peak at 3 kilohertz. And now again for the 3 kilohertz, and the same characteristics apply. What we're looking at here is the overdrive at about 6 dB, that's plus 6 dB, and look at the peaks on that. You can do the math and you can work out where they're going to be, and they are perfectly where they should be. Unfortunately, you don't want them there because that's noise over and above the sound of the tone that you're recording. That's the zzz you get, that's the distortion and the general mush. So if you're driving that hard, you will get that, and that will be added to your music. The end results are this. The tape is very good. Unlike the BASF, it does actually drive into distortion, and you can get more than 0 dB out of it. And unlike the BASF, you can actually get a more reliable recording on the W-1200. We're not looking at the between 6 and 10 dB down. We're only looking at 1 or 2 dB down on compared to the standard ferrics and the CDing 2. So overall, very good tape. Overall, good freeze response. Overall, good hiss. But let's have a quick look at the difference between that and the BASF. If you want a freeze frame on these, you can have a look, see. But basically, the BASF is a fraction lower. But look at the difference in the higher frequency response, around about the 13, 14. You've got the TDK is going a bit fluffy, whereas the BASF is hanging in there. However, the BASF is down a couple of dB on its record level. But look at the purity of that as it goes high. Bearing in mind these were both recorded on the same deck at the same time using the same signals, parallel recording. That is amazing. For the sake of completeness, this one is showing you the 4 dB overload. The spikes are still there. They're still pretty big, so not worth overdriving. Just looking at the silence again, you see the top one's the BASF and the bottom one is the TDK. The BASF was very quiet. However, look at the peak at 1 kilohertz. That is print through, and there was no evidence of print through on the TDK. There was also, if you heard it in the BASF tape test, there was actually some print through on the tune when the tune was loud. So it's a thing that happened on the BASF but didn't happen on the TDK, even though they were recorded at the same time. You have to remember with these things that I'm actually comparing one tape to another, which is good, but in the same machine, which is good. But it doesn't mean that the tapes are necessarily coming out at their best. It's what comes out best in the machine. So just because this tape works better in this machine doesn't mean it's a worse tape. You'd have to use a machine with calibration to be able to come to that conclusion. However, it does give you a good pointer as to which way things are going. And at the end of the day, if it sounds good, it's good. And I think that I wouldn't throw either of these tapes out. They're both worth having, and they both do the job properly. All you've got to do is make sure that you adjust the levels that you can adjust, i.e. the record level, to within what it'll accept. And on that basis, I don't know, I think the BASF's got an edge, but the print through is a bit of a problem. Anyway, you let me know what you think. Put it in the comments. Like, subscribe, start a conversation, share. All helps, and we'll see if we can get this life to be less complicated.